Revolution Radio, broadcasting live from the Roanoke Valley of southwestern Virginia. Join us and see what life looks like from a medium's perspective with Reverend Tracey Lockwood, the medium's medium. We'll explore the tools of psychic development, hear stories and experiences from the other side, and learn to listen to our natural intuition. Now, our host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Very soon, I'm going to be announcing a wide array of psychic mediumship training opportunities that will range from beginning psychic exercises, moving through mediumship and on into channeling, in addition to the certification program that I've been offering. I'm really excited about that, and there'll be opportunities for academic study as well as many other ways to approach it and lots of different price points, so it should work for pretty much everyone. My training sessions are income sensitive, so I'm just delighted to be able to offer them to you. I think the prices are quite reasonable when I look out at other things available on the web because of the intensity of the personal training that I offer in the group setting. So check it out. And if you're curious, just keep a lookout on my YouTube page and on my Facebook pages and profile and my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. I wanted to continue our 100 questions about mediumship. We are working from a book called The Laws of Spirit Mediumship. It was written by Reverend Lena Barnes-Jeffs. And I'm including some of her answers as well as putting in my bit too. So I hope you enjoyed the first one, and it should be a series of 4 here. So I'm just going to pose the questions that are in the book and sometimes share what they say and definitely add my opinion there. The first question, which is question number 20, is into what 2 classifications do we divide mediumship? And those are the mental and the physical phases. And they call them phases, but it's actually just a different way of expressing spirit. Spirit moves through all of us, artists, musicians, dancers, painters, poets, writers, everyone that loves to express their creative side. Even those that feel that they aren't very creative, spirit still moves through you because it's in all and through all and everywhere. So the 2 categories of mediumship, the 2 classifications that they asked about, the mental mediumship is pretty much where you're using your 5 senses and you are conveying messages from spirit, giving what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you know, what you sense, and allowing those impressions to be conveyed to the person that you're relaying them to. And so the physical mediumship is a different phase. They call it a phase of mediumship. And that's when the medium themselves is more passive because they're allowing spirit to work through them physically. And by that, I mean that physical things occur in the room when the medium is sitting quietly, and the voice of the medium isn't being used directly. You might hear direct voice from spirit, which could have a tone that sounds like the medium because it's an instrument. Or it could have the original tone of the speaker. It might sound far off or weird. It depends on whether it went through a trumpet, which is a tube of metal that is sometimes elevated by spirit without any human hands on this side of the veil holding it up and speaking through it. Or it could be card precipitation, where index cards or screens of silk, or whether it's painting canvas, have a picture that's precipitated. They call it precipitated art. because the medium themselves is not drawing it. It's not spirit art like you see a lot of spirit artists. Those are artists that are working in the mental realm of what mental phase of mediumship, and they are sort of channeling what they visually see or sense and allowing spirit to work through them. In physical spirit art, the pictures are precipitated directly onto the surface without the aid of a physical living hand, and there are different mediums that specialize in that. That's not my thing, but there are lots of ways that physical phenomenon are expressed. And so, like for instance, the difference between a mental medium, no joke, no pun, stop laughing. A mental medium is someone who, again, is using their five clairvoyant senses, their clairaudience and, smelling, tasting, hearing, feeling, spirit, tapping into that subtle realm. When a physical medium is working, the physical medium might well go into a deep or dead trance, they call it. It doesn't mean they die. It just means they kind of check out and go to the etheric realm to hang out while positive spirits use their body, and they are physically present. The spirits that are brought through the medium, through the body of the medium, and using the energy of the medium and the sitters, the people in the circle as well, create a physical form that ranges from a smoke or vapor to a physical sort of holographic look or translucent apparition to full body, actually looking like the real person did while they were alive manifestations. So we're diving right in at the beginning of the show. So anyway, I was just thinking how that was probably a big change from whatever's going on in your life right this second. But anyway, that's what physical phase of mediumship. So the two classifications of mediumship are mental and physical phases. And so the second question, 21, the question number 21 says, to what are the mental phases subject? And as I mentioned, it's subject to the mind of the medium. They have to come through the mind of the human instrument. And the physical phases, they say in question 22, what are the physical phases subject to? They say the manifestations of the physical mediumship do not come through the mind of the medium, but are subject to certain elements in the physical body. So that creates the ectoplasm and stuff like that. We'll be talking about that another time. But anyway, so mental phases through the mind, physical phases through the body, basically. Break it on down, Tracey. All right, question number 23. What are the principal phases of mental mediumship? Because they have their own categories within that phase itself. And it's, as I mentioned, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, inspirational writing and speaking, psychometry, and mental healing. That's like you hear about medical mediums, and unless they're like Edgar Cayce and they actually check out while they are in trance and detach from their consciousness, a medical medium is going to be scanning your body and using their clairvoyant senses to see and sense what's going on in your energy field and see if they can diagnose that, and not really diagnose it. That's really a touchy word, especially for the American Medical Association. Determine the cause of the problem and suggest sources of resolution, which might involve sending you to a traditional doctor or a conventional doctor, or it might send you in a direction to Google some information and find out more about it, or to go get a test and see what's going on there. Or it might segue into healing. But anyway, so those are the phases of mental mediumship. What are the principal phases? Number 24, what are the principal phases of physical mediumship? And they mentioned trumpet, which I talked about, that sort of metal tube that flies around, levitation of objects and people, materialization and dematerialization of matter. And that means like you guess it right there that yes, spirit can materialize in front of you. And then, of course, when they go away, they're dematerializing, kind of Star Trekian, but actually can happen. There's slate writing, and that's kind of ancient because school children used to write on slates, and we don't really use those anymore. You know, we've got our own tablets, electronic, etc. right now, but the spirit would write directly on a piece of slate. Automatic writing, which is when the mind of the medium, again, is detached, and they are writing automatically. They could even be using the hand they don't write, and actually what they write makes sense to the reader, which is amazing. Magnetic and spiritual healing, which is using your physical body to create healing for that person. We had an episode with Minister Helen DeVita. She's a medium Helen DeVita. She's from Arthur Findlay College and around and about. And she was talking to us about trance healing. And you can look up that episode and learn quite a bit about it, both trance healing and trance mediumship, or other episodes on YouTube. Just check it out if it's of interest. Question number 25. Does the success of a development circle depend entirely on the medium? Well, I can answer that. That's no, it doesn't, because everyone brings their gift. But let me see what it says. And okay, indeed not, Miss Jeff says. No matter how good the medium, the circle cannot be successful unless the mental attitude of those sitting in the circle is right. And I guess she's talking specifically about developing trance and developing maybe physical mediumship, or developing your practice of giving and receiving messages from spirit. Obviously, you want a harmonic environment to work in, people that are of like mind and spirit, intent and goodness there. You want the best of people's intents there to bring in positive energy. 26. Do you believe a medium can contact any spirit desired? Well, we got a little disagreement going on. She says no. Any medium who claims that is making a misstatement. All spirits have not learned the laws of communication. Some don't even know they can communicate, and all spirit entities are not able to manifest through the same vibration. And I beg to differ, because I've not had a problem connecting with spirits, knock on wood. Only one time was my access to the spirits blocked, and that was for my own safety by my guides relative to the person that I was reading for. They do not allow me to go into any kind of negative or low vibrational setting. And it doesn't mean that the person that you're contacting with has to be perfect or high energy, but this particular situation, it would have been a dangerous situation because the client was being manipulative. The client was preparing sort of a psychic trap. And I know that sounds like totally paranoid, but stuff happens out there in people's minds. And so my guides didn't let me read for her, but all the other 1,500 people, woo, that's my cell phone. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that was set. And let me make sure my phone is, it is off. I guess that was an alarm for something. Anyway, apologize for that. So back to the question, I think, yes, you can connect to any spirit desired. I do not talk to spirits that have ill intent, however. So, for instance, I'm not going to sit down with a client and have a chat with a demonic entity because I have no interest in what they would say because they're full of lies and they're just wanting attention. So in that sense, I guess you wouldn't you don't want to communicate with them. But as far as human spirits, yeah, I think you can. And I think you can connect with them, whether it's before they pass, right as they're passing, just immediately after they're passing, and you can connect with them at any point, no matter how many years it's been since their transition, because time and space are pretty much irrelevant once somebody steps out of the body. And I would just advise that you instruct your guides and angels to keep the vibrational energy high around you and to be responsible for your auric field, A-U-R-I-C, auric field, because our minds are extremely positive. So if you're trying to connect with a low vibrational entity, or you're trying to connect out of just a sport or just curiosity, and you're not respecting the process of connecting with the other spirit, then you might be at risk. But if you're working with high intent and the energies of love and light and perfect sound and connecting to the higher vibrational regions, you shouldn't have any problem at all. And there are lots of ways to build that strength in you in a development training, maybe one of mine. All right, so question number 27. Oh, and so that was, do you believe you can contact any spirit desired? That was the last, and they said no. I said yes, but you might not want to, basically my answer. Okay, 27. What is the first step toward developing mediumship? And they say to acquire the art of concentration. Yeah, I agree with that, because concentration and being able to sustain focus in a very diffuse way to stay loose and ground, I was going to say grounded, but that's how you start out. But it's more like being able to hold your contact with the other side. That does take practice, and meditation can help that, but it's not necessarily a passive meditation, but it's important to learn how to quiet your mind. Just before the show, I was centering my energies because I had heard some upsetting news, and I wanted to be in a great state of vibrational harmony to bring the show to you today. And so I went on YouTube, and I have this most favorite video on YouTube that I listen to when I want to quickly center myself, and it's called Om, as in O-M, mantra chanting, and it's an 8-hour thing, and it's all toned into the 432 hertz, which people are talking a lot about, the perfect vibration of the universe thing there. But it's great. It's got like ohms being chanted and dinging bells that are not annoying and very repetitive, and it's just extremely soothing. That's the Om mantra chanting, 8 hours, 432 hertz, HZ there, in case you want to know. So they said, well, what is concentration? That's question 28. Concentration is the ability to focus the mind upon a certain thought or object and hold it there to the exclusion of all else, entirely submerging yourself in this one thought. You will find as you develop that you become more and more oblivious to everything going on around you, and will gradually attain the art of perfect concentration. Any of you that daydream have already achieved that state. The question is, can you sustain that for 45 minutes or an hour as you connect with spirit and give those messages to people or yourself? So concentration, I kind of like that definition. Focus the mind upon a certain thought or object and hold it there to where you kind of lose an awareness of what's going on around you, and you're focused on sensing. I like that. Question 29, how do you attain concentration? Well, I like the way they say this. They say, by going into the silence alone and endeavoring to train the mind along this line. Absolute relaxation of body is the first step. So you would want to make sure that you relax your body. You want to ground yourself, and then you want to consciously relax your body, maybe focus on your breath, and try to become very aware first of yourself. I'm kind of interjecting some things, and then expand. It says relaxation of the mind and body is the first step, and then try to shut out all sight and sound of the material world and visualize that upon which you would concentrate, trying to tune in that spark of the infinite within yourself to the great divine mind of infinite intelligence, which controls all things. That's really beautiful. I also think of it as the place where time stops. It's like there's just a certain point where you get so calm. It's like you start sensing the time between heartbeats and the time between breaths. It's sort of the space between, and their time is just stopped. It's really great. Love it. Okay, question number 30. Can all people attain this ability? I guess they're talking about concentration in the same way. And they said, nope. Some can concentrate while writing, others on music, some on objects that they're able to visualize, while others are able to gaze directly at a person and immediately lose themselves in concentration. So I guess they're talking about it comes a little more naturally to some people, but there are tools to help you switch your brain into that state. Psychometry is an excellent tool. It is when you take an object that belonged to the person that they want to connect with, and you just hold it in your hand, and all of a sudden you start getting images and impressions and random bits of information that you can convey, and most generally they will be correct. The more you practice, the more accurate you'll be. And don't be afraid to mess up while you're practicing. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be Lisa Caputo in the first day. You can just get what you get and build upon that. And the process of tuning in and learning what it feels like to get information and then try to force it into something teaches you not to force it into something. Getting information and jumping to a conclusion and not getting it correct because you jumped teaches you to listen and to keep your mind open. So it's an important process to practice. There's no shame in not getting it perfect at the beginning, but as you perfect your craft, as you perfect your skills at concentration and focus, your ability to gain deeper and more profound messages and images and evidence from your experience deepens and becomes easier and easier. Question number 33. What do we gain by concentration? Well, the world. I'm just being silly, but that is true. And our sanity and our sense of connection to each other and to the other side, and a wonderful perspective on life itself, and detachment, being able to be observant and detach and yet be loving at the same time. It's a great skill set. Let's see what they say about how we gain concentration. They say the ability to concentrate is a great asset to business and professional people, as well as to the medium, for it teaches them not to scatter their forces, but to successfully direct them to an accomplishment of one effort at a time. When they have once attained the ability to concentrate, they are able to, at will, tune into the divine forces, obtaining guidance in solving life's problems for themselves and others. And that's a great point. I loved what Vincent J. Barra said on the show that he came on when I asked him, people are always asking me, why would you want to develop your psychic ability? And his answer was, well, why would you want to be intelligent or wealthy? You would consider it an advantage. And I thought, oh, yeah, it is an advantage to be psychic, and psychic is such a antiquated word. I don't really like it, because it just sounds like some weird party trick or something like that, but it isn't, because being aware of other energy is really an asset. It's learning to observe at a very deep level of our being, and it connects us to who we are at a larger scale. So Maybe they'll come up with another word for that. All right. Question number 32. What is clairvoyance? And I could answer that, but I want to see what they said. Properly speaking, a clairvoyant can see, hear, and sense the spirit people and their messages, but it may be more clearly understood if we subdivide it into 3 phases. Those are the mini breakdowns: clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience. I would just basically call clairvoyance a lump term for the psychic senses, sight, hearing, tasting, smelling, feeling, touching, etc. And it says in question 33, can all of the phases be developed by one medium? And it says yes, but this isn't common. Some can see only while others can neither see nor hear, merely sense all their messages. A medium that can see, hear, and sense them is indeed fortunate, for she has every opportunity of receiving these marvelous and convincing proofs from these beloved ones in the higher world. Can all 3 of the phases be developed by one medium? I kind of believe that they can, but I also believe that it's something that comes through practice. And I also believe that our idea of what it is to AKA see spirit or hear spirit or sense spirit is sometimes warped. We kind of think it might be a more physical sensation, but it's really a mental impression that comes to you. It's sort of a collective of information that gets impressed upon you. And some people sustain a very physical description of the spirit that they're, looking at. Sometimes that's translated into spirit art. Sometimes people are just really visual in the clairvoyant realm, and they might more easily hold a sustained picture of that spirit completely and totally. But generally, once the impression is given, then it's more tuning the focus into the personality and, having a conversation with that spirit. So I don't know, like I've seen my guides, for instance, and I've seen people in spirit, but my guides maybe more, I can kind of quickly get a full body picture of them. But often when I'm working with a client, I may not get a full body picture. I might sense how tall they are and what color their hair is and what ethnicity they are and, that kind of thing. But I might not actually see them so clearly. But it doesn't matter, because what really matters, since they're not in body anyway, other than that can provide proof, is that you convey their personality on that. Well, we're at the bottom of the show. I can't believe we've gone through half of our show already, and we'll be back on the other side with more information. And if you're interested in connecting with me, you can find more information on my website at medium.traceylockwood.com.
Now back to our show from a medium's perspective with host Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Welcome back. Glad to be here. If you missed the first half of the show or you'd like to listen to past episodes, you can find them on YouTube, and I'd love to have you subscribe while you're there. If you want to receive an update on YouTube, you're going to need to click the little bell, ding the bell, so that it'll send you updates. They've separated that. If you subscribe, it's not an automatic thing for them to send you notification. So, all right. So getting back to our questions. Question number 34. Can you give a Bible reference which proves clairvoyance? Well, I want to preface the answer by saying this is not my battlefield. You can check out the quotes that they give you. My personal feeling is that you can't prove a intuitive or spiritual point using a logical or mental argument, because it poses it kind of like a debate, well, it says this, and they're like, well, I don't look at it that way. Do you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of personal a personal opinion. I think that the best way to prove to somebody that life does continue after death and that, we can communicate with spirit is for them to have a personal experience. For that reason, I don't really make a big effort to do public mediumship or to try to impress people by, trying to prove that what I do is real, because I know what I do is real. So I just get down to the business of teaching and doing readings, and that's just my thing. But anyway, so in answer to question 34, can you give a biblical reference which proves clairvoyance? She says in her book, yes, indeed. And she quotes John 4, verses 16 through 19, where Jesus reads clairvoyantly for Mary at the well. And in 2 Kings 6:17, in Daniel 8, verses 30 through 10. That don't make no sense unless it goes through 9:10, in which Daniel has a clairvoyant vision, and many others. And like I said, that is not my battleground. But anyway, so question 35, what is clairvoyance? And they say that it's the ability to see with the spiritual eye those who have made the change called death, and to see their names, symbols, and messages often written out in the air. It is sometimes called soul seeing or lucidity. I like the term soul seeing. That's kind of cool. Clairvoyance, soul seeing. And I like that they pointed out that you might see them, or you might see their name or symbols or messages written out in the air. I don't see it written out in the air. I think that's kind of misleading to new people that are starting to develop their gifts. Again, it's not necessarily with the physical eye. I think it would be kind of startling if it was, and maybe a little freakish to experience that. So it's in your mind. It's sort of in the same place that you see memories, or it just sort of comes into your awareness and makes an impression on you. So you might see it. I don't know, but I don't. Anyway, not that way. Question number 36. What do you mean when you speak of symbols? Alrighty then, let's see what they say. Nearly all clairvoyants receive symbols from their guides, which mean certain things, they say. There is no set way of interpreting these, as each medium and guide seem to have their own code. The medium must learn to understand their meaning and weave everything together into an intelligent message. Yeah, it's interesting. Yes, that's interesting. I think of symbols as sort of the condensed language of spirit. It's sort of the charades of spirit, sort of like, sounds like, looks like, or something. It's basically an image that they impress in your mind or a situation that they impress in your mind so you can understand what your client's going through. And I like that they say that it's individual to the medium and the guide in terms of that language of interpreting symbols, because it is very personal what somebody sees. Someone might see the color red, for instance, and to them that might be more symbolizing grounding and getting connected to the soil and kind of planting your roots. Another person might feel that it's anger and, danger. And another person might look at it and say that it's about grounding, anger, survival, might be about survival, like take care of your basic needs kind of thing. And also aspects of what you see might be different for each reading. You might see red in one reading and think it's one of those things, and then see it in another, and it's something different for that client at that time. So, again, being open and sort of interpreting it. I also agree too, because, dream interpretation, for instance, there are a lot of books written about it, and it's kind of interesting to know something about the archetypical symbols that embed themselves in humankind, but there's so much variation. I'm not sure that you could ever memorize all the symbols of dreams because it's really different per person. I've talked before about that difference. So anyway, okay, so question number 37. Do you believe a clairvoyant can foretell future happenings as well as read the past? Well, duh. No, I don't mean to sound cheeky. I just, yes, of course, because when you connect outside of time, then all of time becomes apparent. But let's see what they say. They say, yes, to a certain extent. The past has already happened, of course, and is easier to read. Spirit friends have a better understanding of the law of cause and effect than we do and see the direct results of our actions, sort of like a timeline. That's how I think of it. Again, they may have something in mind which they intend to assist us with, and if nothing happens to interrupt it, then it comes to pass as they have foretold. So it sounds like they're saying, well, it might not be 100% accurate. So I've got a little bone to pick about the nuance that's implicated in that statement. I think that there are two types of things. I think that there are things that we wrote for ourselves in our soul contract before we came into this world, and those are set. They're like tent pegs or cornerstones of things, and they will happen. I don't care what you do. They're going to happen. There are other things that depend on our will here in this physical world, and those things may shift. You can cite down a timeline. What did they call it? Let's see. They called it, well, I called it a timeline, going down to see the results of a particular action. They said you can cite down that line and say, if you do this, then this is the likely outcome. If you do that, then the outcome is likely to be quite different. For instance, when people are trying to determine whether or not to stay with a person, a relationship or a partner, or choosing between more than one, or whether they're supposed to take this job or that job, you can definitely feel down those lines and feel those consequences. A lot of times when people are wanting to know about their future partners, I may get an impression of who that person is and what that relationship would be like, but the time frame that occurs within is very elastic, and it has to do with the client making sure that their vibration matches bringing someone of that caliber into their life. Obviously, if you never leave your house, you don't maintain your body, you don't keep your house in fair, decent order, you don't make eye contact when you go out of your house, you're reclusive in your habits, the chances that someone's just going to go, oh my God, I totally fell in love with you, and it not be a stalker or somebody who's not quite well in their mind, this is pretty slim. Right? You have to kind of make an effort to get there. And people always want to know that their soulmate is right around the corner. Just tomorrow you're going to meet them. It's just almost there. You've already met them. It's just happening. They all want to hear that, but that's not true in many cases. In many cases, it's 2 or 3 years off, might be more than that. It could not be meant to occur in this lifetime. It could be that they are that close to meeting them or may have already known them, but it's very different. And it has to do with a vibrational match. If you're feeling really crappy about yourself, then how could you possibly expect someone else to go, oh my God, you're so awesome? I mean, even if they told you, you wouldn't believe it. So, you'll have to be responsible for your own vibration. We're all responsible. We're each of us responsible for our own happiness and unhappiness. And we need to make that decision to be happy and to create a sense of satisfaction in our lives if we're going to draw someone that's really, really a good match for us, that's also able to bring those qualities into our life without draining them or us being drained by people that haven't worked their half of the problem out there. So yes, you can tell the future. Yes, you can be 100% accurate, but you'd better, as a reader, differentiate for your client, whether it's a life contract issue that 100% is going to happen, or whether or not it's a possibility if you go down this way, and then if you go down that way. You need to be very clear on that to not mislead people, because then they don't trust the rest of us. All right. Question 38. Do you believe clairvoyance can foretell death? Oh, boy. I'm going to say what they say, and then I'll put in my opinion. In some rare cases, yes, they say, but the majority of spirits tell us that they do not know any more about it than we on Earth. They can only tell when the administering angels begin to gather by the bedside that death is about to occur. Yeah. I really kind of find it unethical to try to answer the question, when am I going to die? Or when are you going to die? Or when are they going to die? I find it not only morbid, but also a tremendous, heavy responsibility. I've had it misread about my mother's passing. I was told that she had 2 weeks to live, and she's still kicking. And I do know that she's near her time because I've talked to my dad, and he's all antsy and excited that she's getting ready, and he was instructing me about things that I needed to do before she passes. And I could feel her family gathering. But when is that? I don't know. I don't want to say it's up to God, because I think it's more up to us, because we've written that into our life contract. But it's something I don't want to mess with, and I'll take every day I can get with my mommy. I love her so much. So question 39, do you believe that we can create thought images which are so vivid that we confuse them with things that can be seen clairvoyantly? Yeah. They said, absolutely, yes. It is possible to build in your own mind a thought image that is so real that unless you are fully developed clairvoyantly, it's difficult to discriminate between the two. Constant practice and thorough development enable us to overcome this. Yeah, I'd agree with that. We have powerful imagination, and part of the process of developing your psychic ability is being able to differentiate between your thought and a thought that comes from spirit. Part of that difference has to do with the fact that when it's your thought, you're going to be very attached to it, and you're going to feel kind of dogmatic about it. That's a good one to let go of. Anytime that you feel that you have to push to make your point in a reading or in a conversation about spirit to somebody, it's time to sit down and back off, because you're likely entangled with your ego, and you're likely trying to push a point that is precious to you but not of worth to your client. So impressions that come for your client, however, you do have to engage your imagination, and you have to allow those images to come to you without judgment. You're just sort of like, wow, I saw that, and you say so. And they tend to be feeling more random. They may not make sense to your logical mind. They might be your first impression. There are lots of ways to differentiate between a concrete thought that's yours and a image that you're being given, or impression that you're being given from spirit. I kind of think of it as the difference between imagination and fantasy. And I don't know whether Webster Dictionary would agree with me, but I think of imagination as sort of opening your mind and just allowing the possibilities and being free like a child to create a connection with energy that's in the subtle realm. I think of fantasy as a need that you have that you try to create a story around. and it's forced and it has more weight to it and it's not free. So, yeah, I would say that you definitely have to be careful as you develop to discern whether it's something that is your thought. And again, that would have like an emphasis, and you'd have some ownership and some investment in whether or not the message is received versus whether it's an impression and gift from spirit that you're seeing clairvoyantly and understanding at a higher vibrational level, which might seem more random, lighter, and you'll feel less attachment, maybe even a sense of wonder as you pull in that information because it might be new to you too. Question number 40, how can we best develop clairvoyance? And they say by sitting regularly at a stated time and trying to tune in with the spirit forces, trying to see trying to see with that spiritual eye those higher vibrations of the spirit people in which the physical eye is not capable of receiving. My God, this is so wordy. The best time to sit is when you're able to put aside all material cares and absolutely relax and make your mind receptive. Yeah. Clairvoyance can be developed in the daylight as well as in the dark. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, most people. I guess some people traditionally thought that you had to sit in a dark room or something to see spirit, or in a red light, but that's just not true. Those are ways of cutting out some of the other senses so that you become more focused on spirit, but it's not necessary. You can sit in a cabinet and darken things, or you can sit in a red light to sort of phase out stuff, but it's not necessary for sure. So how to best develop clairvoyance? There are a lot of exercises to do that too, I want to add. And learning to, they say a lot about, like a lot of developed mediums say, oh, you've just got to trust what spirit gives you. I think more you need to trust that you're not crazy. You need to trust that information is being given to you and that you're interpreting it the best that you can. And getting familiar with that process, our left brain is always going to argue with us and tell us that's not possible. There's no way, that's just hogwash, or I made that up, or I didn't really see that. Could I possibly have seen that? It's going to always question. So learning to silence your left brain or your brain and allowing your mind, your right brain, to operate freely. You can imagine how conflicted an artist would be if they were painting and they're like, I think I'm going to put some blue over here. And they're like, oh, why would I want blue there? Oh, no, I don't know. Where did blue come from? They wouldn't really question the process. They would just mix that shade of blue and put it on the canvas and it'd look awesome. So you have to kind of let that creative process of connecting with spirit happen and learn to trust that it's real, I think, is more than anything, Yeah. So question number 41, do you believe that we are ever clairvoyant while sleeping? Yeah. Yes, often it says, if we place ourselves in an attitude of expectancy just before sleep, we are more apt to see visions while in that state. Many believe that the soul leaves the body during sleep, going out upon the spiritual planes, but when awakened, all experiences while there fade into oblivion. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Well, we have come to the end of our show. Wow! I wish I could stay with you another hour, but I can't, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I'd like to remind you that it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing.